Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. It is the 9th of June, 2017, and I'm just finished watching Planet of Giants, which is the premiere episode of Season 2 of Doctor Who. And I have to say, for a premiere, it's actually pretty decent, on par with at least the end of the first season. I mean, we have the TARDIS crew, and the story opens with a scene in the TARDIS where, really, you see how much the Doctor's grown by now. He apologizes to Barbara when he's short to her, though not to Ian, and he's trying to fix the problem, and you have everyone ready to, let's go do exploration and try to see where everything is and what everything can do for us, because that's really what's interesting. You just have this tonal shift, I guess you could call it. It's really just sort of a shift, and I just kind of enjoyed that a lot. It's a nice way to start out. And then you have the doors open, and then the scanner breaks, and you think, oh no, are we going for another Edge of Destruction type story? But no, they land, and after some exploration and some really, really good sets, like the sets in this are actually pretty good, except for one near the end, which I will talk about, and it's revealed, no, we're on Earth. This particular planet of giants is just Earth, it's a really well-executed twist. It comes halfway through the episode, and I'm glad they didn't take it for the cliffhanger. But yeah, that was a really good way of getting everything into place, and then you actually go on to the actual plot, where we have this sort of an ecological message, because you have this guy testing some sort of pesticide, and then killing a benefactor says, no, we don't want you to do it because it seems to be rushed through testing, which, fair play. If you're going to rush something, if you're going to do something with, like, pesticide, don't rush it. So, yeah, that's really, really good. And then, like, the TARDIS crew come up on the body, they're like, oh my gosh, this guy's been shot. And surprise, it's like, at least thank goodness we can get out of here and not interfere, because what can we do is we're so small. And thank goodness everything doesn't speak of the devil, there's a cat. And that's the end of the episode. Now, there are a couple of problems. Mainly the backdrop of the dead guy really doesn't work. Some of the early scenes do go on for a bit too long, and I definitely think that there's this awkward cut where, okay, so Ian gets carried off in a matchbox. Like, okay, the guy gets shot, suddenly Ian's back with the crew. It seems like there's a scene missing with them and reuniting that I know for a fact. It rubs me the wrong way a little bit, just because it's just this really bad edit. The music's interesting, and the direction is actually really good. It's by Mervyn Pinfield. I don't know if this is when they switch over. They really do a switch over to get to either use Ealing for this one, because I don't think they're in Lime Grove anymore, because this is just. The set seemed to be a bit too nice to be in Lime Grove, which, Lime Grove is such a tiny, tiny little studio that, sort of made everything feel so cramped. So this one just feels a bit more expansive. Actually, Raymond Cusick has to be given props for really doing a lot of good set design on this one, because he just sort of nails it. He knocks it out of the park. We get, really, really good sets. Again, it's just that some weird pacing issues and a couple of effects that just don't work, that really make me have to bring down Planet of Giants to an 8 out of 10. And let's hope that the next episodes can keep that up, and we can actually have a really good, solid season opener. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's now the 10th of June, 2017, and I just finished watching Dangerous Journey, the second episode of Planet of Giants. And I have to say, when I remember watching this story the last time, I remember really not liking it for it being kind of boring. But this time around, I'm really enjoying this. Like, mainly, a lot of the episode comes from just being a spectacle to look at, because you have these sets that they're these big, huge. Just sort of blow ups of what your standard house would look like, mixed with matching sets of just in your standard size for the two or three actors who are regular size to just sort of interact with, and it's a really good way of doing it. I've really enjoyed the way that Dangerous Journey has sort of portrayed that sort of thing as just as sort of it's a, it's a really good sort of construct, and Mervyn Pinfield does an excellent job directing. There are a couple of times where the episode doesn't necessarily work very well. I mean, especially whenever there's a blow up of the. Basically, whenever there's a blow up of like either like test tubes or something, which happens a couple times, because obviously they didn't have the budget to make every little thing, you can really tell. But props especially has to be made for the sync set. The sync set, it's all filmed from the camera top looking down, which really, that really helps make the echo feel believable, and a lot of the sound just sort of bounces off, which really works for, what a sync would be like if you were so tiny. The plot itself is really lackluster. You just sort of have the Doctor and Susan in one place. They climb up a pipe into the sink where Ian and Barbara, they get in. Ian and Barbara find a pile of seeds coated with the pesticide. Barbara is dumb enough to pick up a seed and isn't telling Ian, oh my gosh, I picked it up, I got the pesticide, we need to figure this out, which is kind of dumb for her, and she kind of acts out of character. That's where my main flaw with this second episode in particular lies. It just sort of, it doesn't have Barbara acting like she usually would. And then they meet at the sink, and then you have the unrelated B plot of the DN6. The scientist that works on the DN6 shows up, gets told a story about how this guy was just like, oh, I lied in my report, and I'm not gonna let you produce it. And he pulled out a gun and tried to kill me, so I killed him. Somehow the gun worked. It's just kind of a flabby story. But the big cliffhanger is really, I would keep a lot of, I would have scaled back a bit of the subplot and kept with the minuscule world where it's better to look at down there. It's just a little more inventive, I think, than, the regular world. But the cliffhanger is excellent. The cliffhanger is just the sink's been, he plugged the sink, he filled it, and now he's emptying the sink, which is just with the Doctor and Susan underneath the plug, that's a really, really good way, to get your cliffhanger into the next episode. I also say William Russell as Ian is really good, but I think it's William Hartnell and Carol Ann Ford, I think, actually steal the show this episode, because they're both having just a lot of fun working off of each other, and they have a lot of time together to just sort of make it feel like, oh, this is, I know exactly what's going on. So, I mean, that really helps. It's that acting, William Hartnell has this childlike spark in him, now that just, it makes him feel more alive. I mean, it's kind of weird because he hasn't had a break in a while, because this was filmed right after the Reign of Terror. There wasn't any break. The break actually comes after the next story. So, you still have him, he's really starting to get into the way he's going to play the role, I think, for the rest of his 10 years as the Doctor, which will be interesting to see, because this is a much better portrayal than the sort of almost grumpy old man. Yeah, he gives into grumpiness sometimes, but, I mean, overall, we get this really, really childlike, gleeful portrayal of the Doctor. That's really good. Yeah, I have to say, I mean, I only have as much complaints as for Dangerous Journey as I really did for the first episode, so I kind of feel like I have to give it an 8 out of 10, because this one's actually being pretty good. So let's hope the third part actually keeps up with this. But until then, well, ladies and gentlemen, it is now the 11th of June 2017, and I just finished watching Crisis, the third episode of final episode of Planet of Giants, which is an interesting point of contention, because it was originally 2 episodes, episode 3, Crisis, and episode 4, The Urge to Live, which were edited down into 1 for broadcast. So this is the only way to watch it. Well, you can watch a reconstruction of both, but as I'm doing it, it's Doctor Who as broadcast on TV as much as I can. We are going with what was broadcast, which is, of course, Crisis, which is, I have to say, okay, it's definitely weaker than the last 2 episodes by quite a lot. I can see why they cut it down, because it was never boring, but it was never also very perfect story, like, oh my gosh, this is the next best story, it's gonna be great, we're all gonna love it. No, it's not worth that much. It really, really isn't, I have to say. It just, for a third episode, you have a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff that sort of your mind sort of fills in the gaps. But there isn't too much. It's easy to fill in the gaps, but there are a lot of points where they're just nothing is really explained, like, as to here is X, and here's Y, and here's why we're doing this, and here's how this happens. You don't see it. Like, one moment you have the doctor and crew coming upon a notebook with chemical formulas. They're like, all right, we're gonna map this out. Cut. They've already mapped it out. And just a really awkward cut. Maybe, I get it, this is a very difficult time for editing, but maybe they could have tried to take a scene, maybe a little short scene snippet with the people from later, humans from later, put it a bit earlier, and just made these scenes a bit easier, sort of, to, I guess, to digest and have as, their own little scenes, and not as, oh, well, X is here, Y goes here, it's gonna be great. Which is really, that's the problem that I have to say, is that I've had the most with this episode in particular. Other than that, it's let's go back to the TARDIS. There's a really good bit where they blow up. They blow up basically they use gas in the laboratory to get the police to come. Basically, but that really isn't necessary. Like, basically, the TARDIS crew have a non-impact in this one. They really don't. I think it would have been better if we maybe had less with the operator and more with just, right, we need to, maybe they realize, something's on fire, then they'll show up and figure out everything has been going crazy at this place, and not just it happens to be in, it just so happens to be that everything comes together. So that's really that's all I have to say. So yeah, I think that's really all I'm gonna want to say about this one, because there's just not much. So I think Crisis, it just gets a 5 out of 10. That being said, and adding up all the scores for Planet of Giants, the story as a whole gets a straight 7 out of 10, for being an excellent story, but having a lot of problems. Thanks for watching the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon, and I'll see you next time when, we get to see, the next televised story, which brings back the Daleks in the Dalek invasion of Earth.